What happens when a guest known for humor and deflection suddenly draws a hard line on live television, and the hosts aren't ready to let it go? Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks and like and comment for more talk show coverage. Whoopi leans forward in her chair, palms open in that familiar way that signals she's about to steer the conversation somewhere sensitive but important, as she always frames it. "All right, so we're back," she says, nodding to the camera, then to the table. "We're here with Awkwafina. New movie out, everybody's talking about it, and you've been everywhere." The audience applauds politely, some cheers popping up. Awkwafina smiles, gives a small wave, that half bow she does when she's not sure what level of enthusiasm to meet. Joy jumps in quickly, not waiting. "I just want to say, first of all, congratulations. You've had such a unique career, and you've managed to stay very yourself." She emphasizes the last word, eyebrows raised. Awkwafina laughs lightly. "I try. Some days more than others." Laughter ripples across the table. Sunny tilts her head, fingers resting on her notes. "And that's actually where I want to go," she says. Her tone is calm, lawyerly measured. The audience quiets a bit, sensing a shift. "Because you've talked openly about identity before, about navigating Hollywood, about expectations placed on you." Awkwafina nods slowly. "Yeah, I mean, it's kind of impossible not to," she says. "It comes with the territory." Sunny continues, "Right. So when you think about representation, and when you think about the way your voice has been perceived." Awkwafina's smile tightens just a hair, barely noticeable unless you're watching closely. "Do you feel any responsibility to explain or address some of the criticism that's followed you over the years?" There's a small murmur from the audience. Whoopi glances at Sunny, then at Awkwafina, sensing the tension building earlier than expected. Awkwafina exhales through her nose, still smiling, but now it's clearly a practiced smile. "I feel a responsibility to do my job well," she says carefully, "and to be respectful. Beyond that, I think." Sunny leans in slightly. "But the criticism is about respect, right?" she says. "So I think people are curious about how you reconcile." Joy cuts in. "Sunny, let her finish," though her tone is light, almost sing-song. Awkwafina nods gratefully toward Joy, then continues. "I think conversations about culture and identity are important. I also think they're personal, and sometimes they get flattened into sound bites." The audience murmurs again, a few mms audible. Sunny doesn't drop it. "But when you're a public figure," she says, "and you profit from certain spaces, people expect accountability. That's not unfair." There it is. The temperature at the table changes. Whoopi shifts in her seat. "Okay," she says, dragging the word out. "We're not trying to put anybody on trial here." Awkwafina chuckles softly, but there's no humor in it now. "It kind of feels like that," she says, still composed. "A little." The audience reacts, some laughter, some clapping, some uncomfortable shifting. Sunny raises her hand slightly. "That's not my intention. My intention is clarity. You've avoided directly answering this in the past, and people notice." Awkwafina looks directly at Sunny now, her posture straighter. "I've avoided answering it in the way people want," she says. "Because the way people want it answered doesn't leave room for nuance." Joy nods. "That's fair." Sunny presses on. "But isn't silence also a statement?" she asks. "Especially when members of your own community say they feel hurt or dismissed?" There's a beat. A long one. Awkwafina's jaw tightens. She glances briefly toward Whoopi, then back to Sunny. "I'm not silent," she says. "I'm selective." Whoopi jumps in, voice firmer now. "And that's her right," she says. "We don't get to demand people unpack their entire lives on cue." The audience applauds that, louder this time. Sunny nods, but doesn't back off. "I agree in theory. But this isn't just about her life. It's about impact." Awkwafina inhales, then lets it out slowly. "Sunny," she says, measured calm, but with an edge now, "I'm not going to answer that question in the way you're framing it." The room stills. You can almost hear the lights buzzing. Sunny blinks. "So you're refusing to answer?" Awkwafina doesn't hesitate. "I'm choosing not to," she says. "Yes." There's an audible reaction from the audience, some gasps, some claps, a few scattered boos. Joy's eyes widen. "Okay," she says, drawing the word out, trying to diffuse. "This is live TV, folks." Whoopi leans back, crossing her arms. "All right," she says. "Let's take a breath." Sunny looks visibly frustrated now, though she keeps her composure. "I just want to understand why," she says. "Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like a dodge." Awkwafina's voice stays steady. "From where I'm sitting, It feels like you're asking me to summarize years of complicated conversations into a headline, she says. And I'm not doing that today. The audience claps again, louder, mixed with murmurs of disagreement. Whoopi nods slowly. And that's where we're going to pause, she says, raising her hand slightly. Because this is exactly the kind of thing that deserves more than a few minutes before a commercial break. Joy laughs nervously. Amen to that. Sunny sighs, looking down at her notes, then back up. I respect your choice, she says, though her tone suggests lingering disagreement. I just hope you understand why people keep asking. Awkwafina nods once. I do, she says. I just don't owe everyone the same answer. There's another ripple through the audience, tension hanging in the air unresolved. Whoopi turns toward the camera. We're going to take a quick break, she says. When we come back, more with Awkwafina. As the applause swells and the camera pulls back, Awkwafina leans back in her chair, expression composed but clearly guarded now, while Sunny straightens her papers, already preparing for round 2. The applause fades as the show comes back from commercial, a little louder than usual, like the audience is still buzzing from what just happened. Whoopi smiles into the camera, but it's the kind of smile that's doing work. All right, she says, voice steady. We're back with Awkwafina. Applause again, mixed this time, some enthusiastic, some hesitant. Awkwafina nods, gives a small wave, but her shoulders are tighter now. Sunny looks forward, composed, hands folded. Joy glances between them, already bracing. Whoopi doesn't ease into it. So, she says, turning toward Awkwafina. Before the break, things got spirited. Light laughter from the audience. And I just want to be clear, nobody here is trying to ambush you. But we do talk about uncomfortable things at this table. Awkwafina nods. I know, she says. I've watched the show. A lot. Joy jumps in quickly. And you've handled uncomfortable things before, she adds. I mean, you've been very open about your career, about being underestimated. Sure, Awkwafina says. That's different. Sunny tilts her head slightly. Why is it different? She asks, calm again, almost conversational. Because from my perspective, it's still about honesty. Awkwafina looks at her for a long moment before responding. Because honesty doesn't always mean public processing, she says. Sometimes it means knowing what conversations are productive and what conversations just turn into noise. A few claps break out. Someone in the audience says, That's right, loud enough to be picked up. Someone else groans. It's split now. Sunny keeps her gaze steady. But when you say noise, she says, that can sound dismissive to people who feel affected. Whoopi interjects. Or it can sound like self-preservation, she says. Which, last time I checked, is allowed. Sunny nods. Absolutely. But so is asking questions. Awkwafina exhales, a little sharper this time. And I'm not saying you can't ask, she says. I'm saying I'm not going to give you a clean quote that gets taken out of context tomorrow. Joy raises her eyebrows. That happens to all of us, she says sympathetically. Exactly, Awkwafina replies. And I've learned from watching it happen to other people at this table. The audience reacts to that, laughter, some applause. Sunny presses her lips together briefly, then smiles. So this is about media distrust? She asks. It's about pattern recognition, Awkwafina says. There's a small oh from the crowd. Whoopi chuckles. All right, that one landed. Sunny leans forward again. Let me try it this way, she says. Do you think there's anything you would do differently now, knowing how certain things have been received? Awkwafina pauses. This time, the silence stretches longer. You can see her considering how much to give. I think everyone would, she finally says. I also think hindsight doesn't mean self-erasure. Joy nods slowly. That's an interesting way to put it. Sunny responds. No one's asking you to erase yourself. But you're asking me to reduce myself, Awkwafina says, her tone still even, but firmer now. To apologize in a way that fits a narrative you didn't live. The audience reacts audibly now, applause grows louder, but there are clear pockets of disagreement. Someone boos. Someone else claps harder to drown it out. Whoopi lifts a hand. Okay. Let's keep it respectful. Sunny's voice tightens just a little. I don't think it's fair to suggest I'm pushing a narrative, she says. I'm reflecting what's already out there. And I'm telling you, Awkwafina responds, that what's out there is not the full picture. Joy looks genuinely torn. Can I say something? She asks. Whoopi nods. Please. Joy turns to Awkwafina. I think what people respond to about you is that you've always been very candid. So when there's one area where you're not, it stands out. That's fair, Awkwafina says immediately. And I get that reaction. I just don't agree that access equals entitlement. There's a beat. Sunny leans back slightly, crossing her arms. So you don't feel you owe anyone an explanation? Awkwafina shakes her head gently. I feel I owe people respect, she says. I don't feel I owe them a performance of remorse that I don't believe in. That lands hard. The audience noise swells, applause gasps, a few sharp inhales. Whoopi nods slowly. That's a strong statement. Sunny's eyebrows lift. So you're saying you don't believe any apology is warranted? Awkwafina looks directly at her. I'm saying I don't believe in apologizing just to quiet discomfort, she says. Especially when that apology would be dissected, monetized, and weaponized. Joy lets out a small laugh, half nervous, half impressed. She's not wrong about that. Sunny shakes her head slightly. But what about the people who aren't weaponizing it? She asks. The ones who are genuinely hurt? Awkwafina's expression softens for the first time since the break. Those conversations, she says quietly, don't happen on daytime TV. The room goes quiet. Even the audience seems to feel the weight of that line. Whoopi leans forward. That's honest, she says. And I appreciate that. Sunny inhales, then exhales, clearly recalibrating. I can respect boundaries, she says. But I'm still going to challenge public figures when I think something matters. And you should, Awkwafina replies. Just like I should be able to say no. Joy looks between them. This is one of those moments where two things can be true, she says. People can want answers, and you cannot want to give them here. The audience applauds that, more unified this time. Whoopi smiles faintly. See, that's why we sit at this table. Sunny gives a small nod, but her expression remains serious. I hope you understand, she says to Awkwafina, that this conversation isn't going away. Awkwafina nods back. I know, she says. And I'm okay with that. There's a tension still hanging, unresolved, but something has shifted. It's no longer about the question itself, but about who gets to control the answer. Whoopi turns to the camera again. We're going to keep talking, she says. There's more to unpack. The applause comes up once more as the camera widens, catching Awkwafina sitting upright, hands folded now, composed but clearly firm in her stance, while Sunny looks thoughtful, already preparing her next angle. The music fades back in and out quickly, and when the cameras return, the energy in the room feels heavier, more focused. The audience claps, but it's restrained now, like they're bracing themselves. Whoopi nods toward them, then turns back to the table. All right, she says. So we're still here. A few laughs ripple, breaking the tension just a bit. Awkwafina shifts in her seat, adjusting the mic on her jacket. Sunny glances at her notes, then sets them down deliberately, like she's decided to go off script. Joy notices and raises her eyebrows slightly. Sunny speaks first. I want to be very clear, she says. This isn't personal for me. It's professional. And when you say certain conversations don't belong on daytime TV, that raises a bigger question about access. Awkwafina tilts her head. Access to what? She asks. To accountability, Sunny replies. The word hangs there. A low murmur moves through the audience. Whoopi exhales audibly. Here we go, she mutters, not quite under her breath. Awkwafina nods slowly. Accountability to whom? She asks. And decided by who? Sunny doesn't hesitate. By the communities impacted. And who decides when they've been adequately represented? Awkwafina asks back. Because that line keeps moving. The audience reacts sharply, some clapping, some groans. Joy jumps in. It's true that there's no finish line, she says. These conversations evolve. Sunny leans forward again. But evolution requires engagement, she says. Not refusal. Awkwafina's tone stays calm, but there's steel in it now. Refusal is also engagement, she says. It's just not the kind you can clip. The audience bursts into applause at that. Whoopi raises a hand, smiling despite herself. Okay, that one's going viral, she says. Laughter follows, easing the tension for a split second. Sunny waits for it to die down. So is this about control? She asks. Because it sounds like you want to dictate the terms entirely. I want agency, Awkwafina replies. There's a difference. Joy nods. That's an important distinction. Sunny presses. But when you're benefiting from platforms like this one, Awkwafina interrupts, politely but firmly. I don't benefit from being interrogated, she says. I benefit from being invited to share my work. A few yes from the audience. Whoopi chuckles. She's got a point. Sunny's jaw tightens slightly. I'm not interrogating you. It feels like it, Awkwafina says. And feeling matters in these conversations, right? There's a beat of silence. Sunny leans back, hands clasped now. So what would a fair question look like to you? She asks. Awkwafina considers this. One that assumes complexity, she says. One that doesn't require a verdict at the end. Joy smiles faintly. Good luck fitting that into a segment. The audience laughs. Sunny nods slowly. Okay, she says. Then let me ask you this. Do you worry that refusing to answer feeds the criticism? Awkwafina doesn't hesitate. I know it does, she says. And I've accepted that. The audience quiets again. That answer lands differently, less defiant, more resigned. Whoopi looks at her. That's not easy, she says. It's not, Awkwafina agrees. But neither is saying something I don't believe just to make it stop. Sunny studies her for a moment. So you're okay being misunderstood? I'm not okay with it, Awkwafina says. I'm just more okay with it than being misrepresented by my own words. Joy lets out a soft wow. Sunny nods slowly. I can respect that, she says, surprising the room a bit, even if I don't agree with it. The audience applauds, more evenly this time. Whoopi jumps in, sensing an opening. Let me ask something, she says. Do you think we as hosts sometimes forget what it costs people to answer these questions over and over? Sunny looks at Whoopi, then back at Awkwafina. Sometimes, she admits. But I also think avoiding them has a cost. Awkwafina nods. It does, she says. I just choose which cost I can live with. There's a long pause. No one rushes to fill it. The audience stays quiet, almost reverent. Joy finally speaks. This feels like one of those moments where the audience wants a winner, she says. And there kind of isn't one. Whoopi smiles. That's real life, baby. Sunny exhales. I don't want to win, she says. I want honesty. And I want fairness, Awkwafina replies. Those don't always line up. Another murmur moves through the crowd. Sunny glances toward the camera briefly, then back. Let me ask one last thing on this, she says. Do you see a future where you would address this publicly, on your own terms? Awkwafina pauses longer than before. The camera holds on her. Maybe, she says finally. But not today. And not like this. The audience reacts, some applause, some disappointment. Whoopi nods firmly. All right, she says. That's an answer. Sunny smiles thinly. Fair enough. Awkwafina relaxes back into her chair for the first time in a while, as if a weight has shifted. But the air is still thick with unresolved feeling. Whoopi turns to the camera again. When we come back, she says, we're going to shift gears a little. The applause rises as the camera pulls back, catching Sunny thoughtful, Joy contemplative, and Awkwafina composed but clearly emotionally spent. The kind of quiet that only comes after something real has been said on live TV. The show comes back from the final break with a different energy altogether. The applause is softer now, scattered, like people are still processing what they've watched. Whoopi nods at the audience, her face serious but calm. All right, she says. We're back. And before we move on, I just want to acknowledge something. She turns slightly toward Awkwafina. That wasn't an easy conversation, Whoopi says. And whether people agree or disagree, it was real. The audience applauds, this time more unified. Awkwafina nods, lips pressed together, eyes focused but tired. Thank you, she says quietly. Sunny sits upright, hands folded again, her tone measured. I want to say this too, she adds. Just because I push doesn't mean I don't respect your boundary. Debate is part of what we do here, but so is listening. There's a small but noticeable reaction from the audience, some appreciative claps, a few murmurs of agreement. Awkwafina looks at Sunny and nods once. I appreciate you saying that, she replies. Truly. Joy exhales, almost dramatically. Okay, she says, forcing a smile. I feel like we all need a group hug and a glass of wine. The audience laughs, grateful for the release. Whoopi chuckles. Later, she says. Off camera. The conversation shifts briefly to lighter ground. Awkwafina's upcoming projects, her work schedule, a quick anecdote about being recognized at an airport. The tone is polite, even warm, but there's an unmistakable undercurrent. Awkwafina answers, but shorter now. She smiles, but it doesn't quite reach her eyes. Sunny listens more than she speaks. Joy fills the gaps, clearly trying to keep things moving. As the segment winds down, Whoopi turns to the camera. We want to thank Awkwafina for being here today, she says. For sharing her work, and for engaging in a tough conversation. The applause is strong. Awkwafina stands, waves, thanks the hosts individually. There's a brief moment where Sunny and Awkwafina exchange a look, no words, just mutual acknowledgement, before Awkwafina exits the set. The cameras fade out, but what happens next becomes the real story. Within minutes of the broadcast ending, clips start circulating online. Short, sharp excerpts. Awkwafina saying, "I'm choosing not to." Sunny asking, "So you're refusing to answer?" Awkwafina replying, "Refusal is also engagement." Each clip framed differently, captioned aggressively, stripped of context. On social media, the reactions explode. Some viewers praise Awkwafina for holding her boundary. Comments flood in calling her composed, self-aware, finally someone who won't perform for the camera. Others accuse her of deflecting, of dodging accountability, of hiding behind vague language. Hashtags trend within the hour, split down the middle. Sunny's name trends too. Some viewers applaud her for asking the hard questions and not backing down. Others criticize her for pushing too far, for turning an interview into what they call an interrogation. Screenshots of her facial expressions are dissected, analyzed, debated. Joy posts a short, neutral message later that afternoon. Live TV conversations are messy. That's real life. It gets shared widely. Whoopi addresses it briefly the next day on the show. Nobody was wrong for speaking their truth, she says. And nobody was wrong for feeling uncomfortable watching it. Behind the scenes, producers reportedly field calls and emails all afternoon. Some viewers threatened to stop watching. Others say it's the most honest segment they've seen in years. Advertisers check in. Executives take notes. Awkwafina doesn't post immediately. Hours pass. Then, late in the evening, she shares a simple statement. No video. No long thread. Just a few lines thanking people for watching, acknowledging the range of reactions, and reaffirming that boundaries don't negate empathy. The comment section fills instantly. Sunny responds the following morning, clarifying her intent, emphasizing the importance of dialogue, and acknowledging that not every conversation has a clean resolution. She doesn't apologize. She doesn't double down. She lets it sit. In the days that follow, podcasts weigh in. Media analysts break down the moment frame by frame. Some call it a turning point in daytime TV. Others say it's a reminder of how impossible nuance is in short-form media. And for viewers, the debate continues. Group chats, comment sections, late-night discussions about who was right, who was wrong, and whether anyone needed to be. One thing is clear. It wasn't forgotten. It wasn't brushed aside. It became one of those moments people reference later. Remember when Awkwafina refused to answer? Remember how tense that table got? Remember how real that felt? That's what live television does when it works. It doesn't resolve everything. It exposes it. Now we want to hear from you. Do you think Awkwafina was right to refuse to answer? Or do public figures owe the audience more transparency? Was Sunny Hostin pushing necessary accountability? Or crossing a line? Share your opinion in the comments. And make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks for more real talk show stories you won't see anywhere else.